Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to today's episode of our Boss Talk program. We're excited to be at Company 18 today to talk about really the extraordinary actions that were taken at the water rescue event on Twinbrook Parkway on September 1st. A lot of good stuff happened those early morning hours throughout Montgomery County, and we wanted to at least talk to some of the folks that were involved in those actions, both here and at Congressional and so forth. So we're at Company 18 simply because of the number of people we had. Trying to squeeze them into 23 was going to be a bit tight. But the call was in 23's area. We'll let the fellas talk about how that played out. So as in general, with any Boss Talk episode, if you are a certified chief officer and you would like to have COPDI credit, then make sure that you sign in with your fire service ID and your name now, and then do so at the end. Chief Thomas will work through getting that credit assigned. If you have any questions, I'm going to be the moderator. I'll be watching the YouTube live. If you've signed in, you can ask those questions. We'll try to get those injected as possible as we go along. Also, as normal, we're interested where you're watching from, if you're watching with a group, right? So, hey, we're watching it at Company 6 today, and how many people you got. That just helps us keep track of our numbers of viewership. So, in all sincerity, there were extraordinary actions taken by many, many people on the morning of September 1st, right? Those of you that worked that night knew that that was crazy come that morning time. And reading the reports, reading the excerpts of folks, the stories they told, I will tell you, in my time here in Montgomery County, there has been little to even equal that, in what we have seen over those years. Very proud of everybody that did that, So as part of a, management level, mean above, we have all kinds of rules and policies and IRP and tell you about what you need to do and all those kind of things. But the bottom line is when you are faced with extraordinary circumstances, arrival like I have never seen them before in my life, how do you plan for this? I don't know. Some folks did some really good things, and we are very interested in hearing what they did, what their decision-making was. And, hey, if they were to encounter this again, what's their advice? Or you were to, what's your advice to those folks? I would like everybody watching this, it doesn't matter if, entry-level recruit all the way up to senior staff, think about what you would do if you were, in fact, one of the first arriving units at this type of situation. What else I got? So I think that's about it. We have tried to sequence this so that we heard about water rescue with the boats a couple weeks ago. Now we're hearing about an actual event. That was kind of unplanned. But I want you to save the date for November 10th. November 10th, we're going to hear from the incident commander at this particular incident. So that's it. I'm going to turn it over to Captain Brady Miller and the folks that have offered up to tell their story of what happened early morning hours. It's September 1st on Twinbrook Parkway. Captain Miller, it's yours.
Chief, thank you. So kind of riding down the road this morning, I was thinking to myself, there are some pivotal events, not really pivotal, but just major events through my time here in Montgomery County, whether they've been high-rise fires in downtown Silver Spring or Bethesda, or multiple alarm fires on Twinbrook Parkway or Leisure World. And this was one of those types of events that it's not an everyday thing that happens. And to make this successful, obviously, it takes many, many, many people, and many people that did a lot of good things on this call that may or may not have been in the policy or operating within the boundaries of the policy. And that's what we're here to talk about, I think, today, is the stories from just a sample group. I have 5 guys here. I know there were more than 5 people on this call, but we just picked some guys, and we're here today to listen to the story that they have to tell, and why they did the things that they did on this potentially once-in-a-career style call. So in front of me, we have Captain Heflin, 18 on the B shift, Master Firefighter Carlin, Captain Kenna, 23 on the B shift, Firefighter Marlette, 23 on the B shift, and Master Firefighter Smith 10 on the B shift. So if we could, we're going to start, if you guys in the back, would you put on the screen just the dispatch sheet? Unfortunately, the audio didn't come through like we wanted it to, but everybody that's watching can see the initial dispatch. So this was a single engine call for a water problem. You know, we run water problems all the time. No big deal. And I'm gonna really start with the captain from Company 18. There you can see the call. The paramedic engine 718 was on it. Tell me a little bit about the beginning of this call.
So the beginning, we woke up a few minutes or a few seconds earlier, probably. The tower was dispatched to Congressional. So 3-something in the morning, whatever it was.
Which was a water rescue?
Which was some sort of service call.
Okay.
Right? It was some sort of service call, I think, for a water problem, if I recall correctly. I kind of woke up to the tower going on a service call, got the little chuckle, you got to run this call kind of deal, and then realized, hold on a minute, Congressional Lane, we're not even due there on full assignment. So it was a little surprising, and then not long after that, we got sent out for this call.
So the situational awareness of your tower going that far away.
Yeah, well, it was surprising. At 3
going.
o'clock in the morning, I was like, "Whoa! Did I miss a fire? Did I miss the beep somewhere? Did I miss something?" So then we got dispatched to the Twinbrook, and as we got out there and got on the road, then I could see all the calls that were being dispatched. So the station alerting went off here, and they didn't give our vocal on the dispatch channel on Alpha 2, and probably, we were already on Randolph Road, heading down.
So we were just back. The county was that back.
They were backed up. They were, Alpha 2 was literally dispatching, call after call after call, to all over the place. And
so they didn't initially put you on an alternate talk group or
no
anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of. If
Okay.
they did, I missed that.
And do you remember at what point that they changed the call? So the call type got changed, correct? So
At some point, the call changed to drowning ALS1.
Drowning ALS1. And did they add units?
Near drowning. At that point, I believe they added the medic unit, but I didn't catch, and I don't know that the Alpha 1 added that either, because they had a lot going on. There was clearly a ton of stuff going on, so I'm sure they didn't have time to keep up with every single thing that was going. But it was a good ways in until, that changed. Well, I think not long after we got on Randolph Road. They hadn't done the vocal yet. So I told the guys, I said, hey, this is changing now. I said, let's step it up. I don't know exactly when that was. TJ might be. So not long on to Randolph, it changed from the service call to the near drowning, I think is what it went to.
Okay.
So that was when we were kind of like, all right, let's step it up. So we're heading down Randolph. We get to the bottom of the hill, just past Lindell, and encounter a lot of water, a lot more water than is ever normally in that area. Slowed us down a good 10 or 15, 20 miles an hour, and when you hit that kind of puddle, that was going across.
Was there anything in the CAD about, or MDC, I'm sorry, about what kind of drowning it was, or just ALS drowning?
So there was a lot. There started to be updates on the on the CAD, and I don't. This one says sees a child floating in the water. That's up on the screen now. There was several updates coming in as we're going down the road that, clearly is painting a different picture of when we started off with the service
you're going
call.
to.
Right, that was originally a service call. So
do you communicate that with the guys in the back of the fire engine?
Yes, so I typically communicate. I normally watch the updates, and if there's anything, whether it's good or bad, like, hey, this is changing, or hey, this is changing the other direction, and it really sounds like it's BS and it's the wrong call type, or whatever it may be. So I told them, I said, hey, this is changing quickly, and I'm kind of giving the updates. I'm reading them to them as we're going down the road. I said, so I made mention. I said, hey, we have earlier in the morning, we had used one of our life jackets for a drafting drill to keep the strainer from floating in the mess in the pond. So I said, hey, did that thing make it back on here? And they're like, yeah, it's back on. I said, okay, so we're going to need or be ready to get up top and grab those things when we get in here, because every comment is making it sound worse and worse, or CAT update, I should say, is making it sound worse and worse as we head down the road.
Okay, so just to put things in perspective as well, do we have the complex map? Can we show everybody where this is? They hear me? Okay. So the street up top is Veers Mill Road, correct? And the one through the center is Twinbrook Parkway, right?
Correct. Yes.
So the buildings that we're talking about, if in that intersection, as we're facing the page, is on the left-hand side.
Correct.
Which building are we going to? The original dispatch building.
So the original dispatch
So I see
building,
4 addresses there.
yes, the original dispatch building is right around where the cursor is. That's 212, I think, and the other one's 214. Are those the right numbers?
That's the one
Yeah.
in batch 14 and
Yep,
12.
so
Okay, so we're going to one of the rear buildings.
We're dispatched to one of the rear buildings.
Okay. All right. And just
There we go.
from being around the county, you know that's a little bit of a low-lying area.
I
But we
know-
aren't thinking to this extent yet.
So I know that corner at Veers Mill and Twinbrook is a little bit low in that one corner. But I'm not thinking anything of what we eventually ran into when we get there.
So even hearing the story afterwards, I thought it was the buildings on the right side of the page. So I didn't even know that coming here today.
Right.
So, all right, so we got eventually what happened? I guess 23's engine. So at this point, we have 18's wagon and 23's medic unit coming, correct?
Correct.
And at what point, Captain, did you attempt to add your wagon or replace your wagon?
So I was dispatched for a service call in 33's area for a flooding yard and basement. So I put on my bunker pants because I wasn't going to walk through the water in my shoes. We start heading down the road. We get to Montrose, and there's a river going across Montrose. I was like, all right, so we detoured that, get down to Montrose and Tower Oaks Boulevard. There's a police car in the water. They've already extricated another officer there. So continued on. Then I heard medic 723, paramedic 718, are you okay on the priority update? So I clicked on that. I read the comments of baby in the water, people screaming. I was like, oh, forget the service call. We're going to this. So I piped up. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on at ECC. So I said, add me to the call. I believe they asked 18 to drop off. The captain did the right thing and said, I'm still going, which they got there a few seconds before us.
Captain, did you do that based on MDC comments?
Yeah, so...
Or
I mean,
where
like I
you
s-
were at, or?
Well, it was a combination of both things, right? If it was literally, if it legitimately sounded like a service call, it probably would have been within a few seconds each other. And I didn't hear where they were coming from. So I just knew where we were, and clearly they weren't at the firehouse, so they would have been there long before, or dispatched long before, should have been dispatched long before we would have been dispatched. So as I'm reading all these comments, and they're like, no, you can go in service or whatever. And I don't recall my exact terminology, but I said, no, you can add them to the run. We're going to stay on it.
Something
Something to that effect. Basically, I'm still going. You can add them if you'd like. I don't, at that point, I didn't care what they did.
It was a
We
gut
were still-
feeling? Was it based on
Well, it's
MDC
based on what
comment?
I'm reading. That
Okay.
every comment or every update seems to be that little
Painting a
bit
worse picture.
right? And it's going from one building potentially to another. I mean, there's more. There's all kinds of. And I don't know whether these guys got all these updates.
Here's a lot of people
Yeah,
screaming for help.
There's a child complaining. Here's people screaming for help. So there's all these things going on. So it's like, well, I'm going to continue because we're going to be more than likely we're going to be there before they are. If not, we're pulling in, at the same time because I didn't know where they were coming from. But we're already on Veers Mill Road at that point.
Okay.
So
So Justin, I'm going to go to you at this point. Were you in quarters at 23?
Yes, sir.
So it's the end of Twinbrook Parkway. It's not a big long run. Tell me what you were thinking about. Did they dispatch you when they upgraded it to an ALS call, correct?
Yes, when they upgraded to the ALS call.
So did you have any idea that 18 was running a service call down there?
No, I just, at that point, I assumed that it had originated as a drowning ALS one.
Okay. So you're getting into the medic unit thinking it's a
Yes.
drowning.
Yep.
All right. And did you know who you were running it with? Did you know you were running with Company 18? And
Yes.
Wondering where your wagon was at?
Our wagon had been alerted because.
So you knew you weren't running it with them?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get on the scene first?
Yes, we did.
So tell me kind of what you were thinking about between the time you left Station 23 and the end of Twinbrook. That's a busy place here at Company 18, isn't it? Man, a lot of EMS runs here. Sheesh, almost like Company 2. So tell me what you were thinking about between the ramp of Company 23 and the end of Twinbrook Parkway.
Well, we got in there. I got in the map book, took a look at where it was. I'm pretty new, not only to the department, but to Company 23 as well. So I did not know this was a low-lying area. I don't think I had ever been in this particular apartment complex before. So my driver, Ryan Hauk, pretty senior guy.
Did he know where he was going?
He knew where he was going. So I was definitely fortunate to have that. And as we pulled out, it said baby floating in water. So I'm immediately going down the avenue of the visual image I got in my head was that, you know, if it's a lower income area, the baby had been sleeping on the floor, or the bassinet had been put on the floor, water came in, baby drowned, but I'm thinking
So
like
you
knee-high
already
water.
thought it might be in an apartment.
Yes, yeah, I thought it was an apartment. I did not get like an outdoor image at all. I was thinking like, you know, water came into the apartment, baby was on the floor, and baby drowned that way. As we were going down the road, and as we were pulling in, we started having to drive through a significant amount of running water.
In the parking lot?
Yes.
Of the complex?
Yes, sir. And I remember looking over at Ryan Hauk, and I said to him, I said, if we got people in here, I'm going swimming. And we positioned the unit. I guess it would have been on the Charlie Bravo side, or the Alpha Bravo's corner,
Corner-ish.
right there. And
you parked in water?
yes.
Or was that okay?
Yeah. When I stepped out of the medic unit, the water was up to my shins. So
Okay.
and it was and as I stepped out of the medic unit, I just looked out and just saw a lake, pretty much.
Tell me about this scene. Was there a lot of people there? Were they screaming and yelling and pointing for you where you should go? Or
Yeah, there was a significant amount of people screaming. There were people gathered out in the parking lot, screaming that, you know, some people were screaming English, some people were screaming in Spanish. But the effect that I got was from all these people was that there are people in the water and that they need help.
on the backside of a building?
Yes, they were the people who were outside originally were within a couple of yards of our medic unit, and then there were people on the I guess it had been the Charlie exposure on the third floor balcony who were screaming that there were people drowning in the water and were pointing down to apartments.
On the so you were directed by the people in the parking lot. Go to the backside of the building. There's people in the water on the backside of this building.
We pulled up on the backside originally because you kind of crest a little hill, like a very small rise in the ground. I assume that was I didn't think about it this way, but I'm assuming that was a part of Hauk's plan to make sure the medic unit didn't get swept away or do
Sounds
our
like a
best
good
chance.
plan anyway. We'll give them that credit.
Yeah.
So so then what did you do?
At-
You're essentially by yourself. Well, you have a driver. What'd you do?
At that point, me and Ryan, we just kind of knew that we had to get to work quick.
Did you see people in the water?
No, I did not see people in the water, but I heard screaming coming from the water.
Okay.
And I had people on that third floor. I think it was third floor balcony.
Do we have any early pictures of the backside of that building? If we could find those and put them up, Justin, keep going.
Of that third floor balcony, screaming that there were people in the water. So I just took their word for it, and at that point I entered the water.
So can I ask, did you and your driver talk about a game plan at all, or were we just, we're doing something?
It was just kind of an immediate reaction. There was no planning or whatever like that. There was just immediate reaction.
Okay. What did he do while you were doing this?
It's something very fortunate that he took the time to call out for the Swiftwater assignment and get more people in the way.
Okay.
And I remember just tossing in my radio and my cell phone and saying, "Here, take these." And he grabbed them. I guess he put them in the medic unit, got on the radio, and called for the swift water assignment. And at that point, I was swimming into the water, and then he entered as soon as he got people in the way. And he kept his radio on, which was another good idea.
Did he ever get in the water?
Yes, he entered He entered a couple yards behind me after I was swimming out there.
So tell me, did you have when you went into the water? And I know the objective was to get people out. Did you see when you got in? Did you see somebody and you say, "That's the person that I'm going to get"? Or do you recall?
Yes, sir. I do recall. No, I didn't see anybody. I yelled up at the people who were in that third floor apartment. I screamed, "Is it this apartment?" And that apartment was like up to my chest. And they said to be honest, I think they said yes. It is a little, a bit of a sensory overload in that situation. I swam into that apartment.
How did you get into the apartment?
The slider was open.
Okay.
Which I should have known that somebody had probably made egress, but I wasn't thinking about that at that point. I swam in the apartment, did a quick primary search, couldn't find anybody floating or in there. So at that point, I exited the apartment, and I heard
Was water rising while you were in there?
To be honest with you, I really couldn't tell.
Do you have any idea the time frame you might have been in the apartment?
I do not know. At that point, I heard somebody screaming, and I looked out down to the, I guess it'd be the Bravo Delta corner of the primarily affected building.
So wait, hold on, I'm trying to paint a picture. So on the back side of these buildings, there's terrace level apartments, correct?
Yes.
2?
Correct.
Looking at the back, I'm looking at 2 terrace levels. 4 apartments per floor?
Correct.
So how many floors? 3 floors?
3 floors.
So we have 14 total apartments in the building?
The terrace level are just 2 terrace.
Yeah.
And then
So 2 on the
storage,
back
except
and
for
then
the
4
building
on
we were
1, 2,
in.
and 3?
Yes.
Okay. So if I'm looking at the back of the apartment on the right is where you went first?
No, where I went first was the second row of apartments.
Uh-huh.
I went into like a middle apartment. I couldn't tell you which one it was.
Okay.
But like it was that second row of
And
apartments.
you said water was at your chest. You're
Yes.
a tall guy, taller than me. So it was at your chest.
Yes.
Okay. Nobody in that apartment?
Nobody in that
So you
apartment.
left that apartment, went to the next apartment over, did the same. Was your plan to do the same thing?
No, I didn't even go to the next apartment over because when I swam out, I heard somebody screaming. It was like it sounded, like they were dying. Like not to say a cliche, but like they were
Well,
screaming.
they potentially could, right?
And at that point, I could kind of see the guy. I saw almost like a shadowy figure. And I started.
He
to
or
swim
she
towards
was.
him.
Were they outside? Could we fix that? Were they outside of the apartment or inside of an apartment?
They were outside of an apartment,
Okay.
kind of like clawing for air, trying to.
They
swim.
couldn't swim. They needed assistance.
They needed assistance. I'm not sure if the emotional distress made them unable to swim, but they definitely needed some
They
help.
were convinced they needed help. They needed help, right?
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Yes, sir.
So what'd you do with them?
I swam over to them. It was a Spanish-speaking gentleman who did not understand a whole lot of English. I took my left arm and I grabbed him around the chest, and there was a civilian who was on I guess it'd be the first floor apartment, and I grabbed onto the railing, like the railing that runs vertical on those apartments, and I grabbed on and kind of did half of a pull up, and I said to the guy, I said, "Hey man, you got to help me get this guy up here." And between me and him, we got him up over the railing, and I climbed up onto the balcony with him, and I said, "Who's in there? Who's in there?" And he just kind of looked at me, and I do not speak good Spanish, but I tried my best to recall what I've learned off of between high school and a Duolingo app, and he got it across to me that his wife and his kid were in that apartment
Directly below you.
directly below us.
Okay. Was it quicker to see? how far from the edge of the water were you at that? Like the decision to go up instead of to go to the shore, if you will. I don't know, is that the right terminology?
Yeah.
Is that? I mean, is it?
You could
what
say
kind
the parking lot, because the parking lot was
Okay.
basically where there wasn't water. And
How far of a
everything else was.
distance was that?
I'm really not sure. I think it was at least 50 yards.
Okay.
Maybe.
So it was a ways. It was easier to go up than it was to come out.
Absolutely, because
right.
I would have lost visual contact with anybody had I gone back to.
Okay.
Now, knowing what I know now, I was extremely close to the other shoreline, so to speak. I was maybe 10 feet from it, but
Okay.
I didn't. All I would have had to do was pop that corner, and I could have walked out, but I didn't know that at the time.
Okay. So we're on the balcony with this guy. This guy says, "Hey, my wife and kid are still in this apartment. What do you do?"
At that point, I screamed at him in Spanish. I was like, you stay right here. Do not go back in, not go back in. And I kind of grabbed him by his shoulders and shook him a little bit to make sure he understood what I said. And at that point, I jumped back into the water, and I swam underneath the balcony, and I kind of looked at you could not see its sliders back there. You could not see the slider. I reached my hand in, and I couldn't find anything dry. I don't know if my hand ever made it into the apartment. Looking back, I don't know if that door was open or a little bit. I assume it had to have been
There's
open
a lot
a
of
little
stuff
bit,
going on.
but I couldn't find any dry stuff, and the slider was completely submerged. So at that point, Ryan Houck started going, "Hey man, where you at?" And
Was he in the water or is he on the shore?
he had exited the water at that point, and I swam back to him, exited the water, and then continued on the rest of the call.
So can I assuming you've never have you run a call like this before?
No.
So at any point did you go, this might not be the best course of action?
After the call, like driving home that morning is when I started thinking about that.
But no hesitation between getting out of the medic unit, saying I need to act now, and acting.
Yeah, it was just kind of
Good job. Good job.
Thank you.
Captain Kenna, at what point do you think you arrived?
So I arrived, I'm going to guess about 15, 20 seconds after 18 because
Okay.
they've already started making their way down. And I told my guys, hey, grab our water stuff. I'm going to go see what 18 needs.
So can I just pause you right there? Between the time you decided to not go on the service call and run the water call, what kind of things were you thinking about and talking about with
So
the firefighters on your engine?
I'm doing the same thing. I'm reading all the comments, telling everybody in the back. And my envision of what I was reading was there's a baby floating downstream and people are just yelling. So I'm starting to get a plan in my head.
So why were you envisioning this? So when I see baby, and I hate to say this, I'm envisioning a bathtub type of situation.
So we recently ran a bathtub drowning. And the reason I didn't think about that is because I'm not thinking, I saw the water as we're going to,
car.
exactly. And then most people don't have a lot of people in their apartments to be screaming. So I'm envisioning they're outside the building.
Okay.
However that baby got out there, the baby is in the water and floating away and people are screaming.
Okay.
So
what kind of things are you talking about with your drive? Who was driving? Was your regular driver driving you?
it was not my regular driver. It was Ryan Wilt.
Okay. And the guys in the back of the engine, what kind of things were you talking?
I was just trying to read off all the information as we're going down the road and looking up and helping Ryan look for water and stuff as we're going down the road.
Was it still raining really hard? Or did the rain
To
stop?
be honest, I don't really remember.
Okay. I don't, I'm not surprised at all.
I think it was still raining, but I don't think it was raining super hard at that point. So we pulled in, and those guys were getting that stuff down as I went down.
Getting
to
what, the PFDs,
PFDs,
and the throw bags and
yep,
helmets?
they were getting all that stuff down. I said, bring it down. I'm going to see what 18 needs. And then that's when I met up the captain, and I said, hey, what do you guys need?
All right, so you're on the scene, right? We'll go back to you, Cap.
Okay.
You're on the scene. Tell me some of the things So you say, hey, get the PFDs, get all.
So first off, I don't remember what I said, so you might have to brush up on that when I get to that part. Secondly, no, so we roll in, and we're supposed to be going to the back buildings where Justin said that that they started off. We're dispatched to 14, I think, was where this all started. We pull into the complex, and the medic unit is parked kind of in between the two sets of buildings. So we pulled in and never made it to 14 or 12.
And those are the back
Those are the
buildings.
back two buildings.
Okay.
Which you saw in some of those pictures there. They were about half or three-quarters of the way up. So we pulled in and parked in front of 10 and 8, I think are the numbers.
So it goes 8, 10, 12, 14?
Correct.
Okay.
So we parked in front of those, and as we got out, like I said, I'd already told them, hey, be prepared for this, to jump up and grab these things. As I got out, there's people everywhere. So a lot more people than if you were around a building fire or whatever. Still
All frantic-y.
Yeah, I mean, there's just
Frantic.
people everywhere pointing, yelling this way, that way, and I can't make heads or tails of most of it. So we get out. I think one of the guys from the back.
Hey, let's switch back to that picture. One picture back. Is this what?
So I don't even see that yet.
Okay.
So that's the back of 14.
Okay.
That's where we were dispatched to.
Okay.
Either 12 or 14. That's 14 if you go further down to the left of that.
And we're looking at, are we looking at terrace level?
You're looking at terrace level apartments on 12 and 14.
Okay.
Is what you're looking at in that picture. So I don't even see that yet. I don't see, there's been a video that's running past of water running down the hill and over that's hitting the side of 12. That there, I never saw any of this. TJ said he saw that because the medic unit was parked in front. So when we
That's
pulled
coming
in,
off of Veers Mill Road?
that's coming across the parking lot of the complex.
In front of the medic unit.
That's in front of the medic unit. So I never saw that. We got out, they jump up, get the stuff. Immediately he's throwing stuff on. I started to put stuff on. They were set to little kid sizes, so we had to adjust it to bigger men's sizes to throw a vest on.
I feel your pain.
Right. So.
So does Kenna.
But I realized, I realized that. So TJ threw some stuff on. They tied him off with one of the throw bags, I think it was, right? Is that what they tied you off with, or did they start with the utility?
Yeah,
bag?
well, it started, as he said.
Oh.
Took like 2 steps in, and I'm definitely not as tall as he is, so I went like shoulders deep.
Did you come back out of the water to put a PFD on, or you put one on right away?
Before I went in. And then
Yes.
Before I went in, I had a PFD and a helmet. And then took a step in and went like shoulders deep. And then took a step back, asked Fox to grab me a pike pole, which is like an 8-foot pike pole. I took 2 more steps, and that didn't even touch the ground. So I threw that back.
So you're
And I
swimming at
asked-
this point?
Yeah. And then I asked Fox to throw me a rope, so he throws me a throw bag. I just wrap that around my wrist, and I start going to the Delta Charlie corner.
So, and that's where you believe mom and baby, mom and daughter may be?
Yeah, when I got out, someone approached me and was just my baby, that iconic thing. I just pointed to that building, so.
Okay.
we just
And
went
you
back.
have a little bit of swimming background. Is that correct?
Apparently.
I'm asking because I only hear rumors, man. I love rumors, but I heard that you have a little swim.
I may have twirled a whistle for a while.
Excellent. So you have a little bit of you have more knowledge than I have on swimming and getting people out of the water, right? I don't.
Potentially.
Okay. So go on.
So then we just went to the Delta Charlie corner,
And
this was probably the only time that I thought about anything. Besides that, I would agree with what Captain Heflin and I have talked about since then. It's just like, you just needed people doing stuff. You just needed reactions. There's no time to think. But I just was like, all right, brace yourself for what you're about to see. And turned around, and it was just a pond. I mean, it wasn't like moving water or anything. It was just the pictures you see on the screen, and like, it was like surreal. You're like, okay, this is new.
and you felt it to go in this debris filled pond. That's what you needed.
Yeah,
to do.
they're saying there's a baby back there. Then
Yeah.
there's a person back there. Then we're
Oh,
going.
I'm not questioning you.
Yeah,
just
no,
wanna
I get
make
that.
sure we
Yeah,
all-
yeah, that's.
So the other part of that is that, I mean, as you can see right there, I mean, granted, that's a picture, not a video. There's not much movement out of this water. I mean, mulch is floating. You're watching. There's no movement, or if there is, there's very little movement. So when he jumps in and goes around to the back, they tie him off. At that point, he can go back to your story.
So at that point, the throw bag's only about however long throw bags are.
Right.
So we're maxed out. So now they're tying a throw bag to a throw bag to give me more rope. So at this point, the father, I presume, is on the balcony just pointing down. So I'm assuming, like what Captain Heflin's told me on the way there, that this baby's floating in the water. So I just start zigzagging back and forth, swimming back and forth, just grabbing stuff. And it's laundry baskets, anything you could think of that's
Really?
in all of these apartments is floating underneath the surface of this murky water. So you have no clue. So probably a couple minutes of swimming back and forth, and I was like, this is hopeless. This is a needle in a haystack. There's no way we're finding anybody here. Tower 3's on Beers Mill Road, lighting everything up. You can see from shore to shore or from side to side. And father's sitting there. Captain Kenna comes out to the balcony. He asks, hey, what do you see? I'm like, you don't see anything. The terrace level, the water is licking the first story balcony. I was like, I don't see. Captain Heflin comes out, asks, what do you see? I'm like, I don't see the header of the sliding glass doors. At this point, I'm like, there's no way anybody's alive. And
Do you believe the water to be rising or falling, or?
I never really, at that point, I really didn't even think
I don't
about
even
it.
know if it's relevant.
Later on, you could tell that it was coming down further on, but that was a while from then. So then that's when Captain Kenna's kind of on the balcony, and he's thinking through his thought processes of things to do. I don't know.
And what, Captain, we'll go to you. What are some things that you're trying to process? Is the man still with you? The
Yes.
occupant of the apartment?
So I come down, speak to the captain. I say, hey, what do you need? And I'm pretty sure neither one of us thought about command because it was just way overwhelming. He said, hey, can you get me some information from the Charlie side? Can you go through inside? I said, absolutely. So I went in, ran into Dad. My medic, Zaya, was able to communicate with him. He's like, they are right below us, and they are dead. And I'm like, okay. So I'm speaking to TJ, and he's communicating back with Captain Heflin, and there was a lot of verbal communication, not a lot of stuff on the radio. At that point, my thought process was, if they are there and we have a rescue, how can we get them? So I had someone first let me know what apartment I'm in so I can get some information to have that. My thought process was, I know our SCBA is good for 3 foot of water. Come to find out they're good for 9 feet of water. If we had any signs of life, I had 3 people ready to go in. And,
So with SCBA, wearing SCBA?
Wearing SCBA, just PT clothes and SCBA. And my thought process of how long TJ was in the water, how long this call's been going on, Dad's telling me they're dead. I did my risk-benefit analysis. I'm thinking this may be not a rescue, it's a recovery. So I turned around and I looked at my guys and said, hey, I know I'm getting ready to ask you to do something crazy. Just be ready. And the look on their face was a lot different than a normal house fire where we do our risk-benefit analysis and everyone's good to go. They were like, yep, this is crazy, but we trust you thought this out and we're going to do it.
At any point, did you think about breaching a floor or anything like that?
I did not. That was brought up later by, I believe, truck 25. I did not think about that. So getting that information, I made the call, hey, we're not going in. Talking to TJ, he's like, I'm not getting any signs of life. I can't see anything. I'm like, all right.
You're on a balcony.
I'm on a balcony.
TJ's in the water.
Yep. So then the boats show up pretty quickly since they were already dispatched to a call in 23's area. They were going across, I think, 214, and I'm yelling, hey, I need you over here. So they come over, and there's communication between the boat and TJ, and I don't remember all that went on. And I remember them saying that the water line's going down a little bit, and then the next thing I heard was, hold your breath, and then out came a baby. So we grabbed the baby.
All right, so I'm going to stop right there
Okay.
because I need to expand upon this a little bit.
Okay.
So, and Jerry, I'm definitely going to come to you later, but so the Swiftwater guys were in Rockville already.
Yeah.
How long does it take, and we just did the boat thing at Cabin John, for you to get a boat off the trailer into some water? And do we carry it like,
So it depends
Ranger
on-
style, or what? How did you get? How did
It depends on the boat and what water we're talking about. So, in that particular case, obviously, when we pulled up first, I left our truck and boat kind of further out because there was a couple engines in there already. I was like, leave this out here, and I'm thinking we're going to be walking into a basement to get people out. So I'm like, we're taking our sticks, we'll leave the boat here, and then once I got there, I realized that
we need to?
there
put
was
a boat
deep
in the
water, and I wanted to put a boat in. So the boat that I chose, we carry a small, rapid inflatable boat on the roof that doesn't already have the motor on it, but literally 2 ratchet straps, 2 guys can lift it off the roof, flip it over, and throw it in the water. And then
So
the
it's
motor
a
weighs
4-minute.
right,
process.
right. The motor weighs 100 pounds. You grab the motor out of the back of the truck, buckle it on there. So less than 5 minutes,
We have a
is
boat
in the water. Yes.
Okay. And TJ, you're in the water still at this point, right?
Yeah.
And the boat comes up to you. You're swimming around. And there's a boat there.
Well, before that, I think you guys went to 14 and 12.
Correct.
Right. So that's when he was pretty much doing his analysis and everything. I got either bored or whatever, treading water. So I swam over to that apartment because I was 3/4 full on the terrace level. So I was like, well, might as well go over there and start searching where he was searching. So
Where Justin was searching.
yeah, and the Swift Water team was in, I guess, 14, 12, whichever one, right? They started in that one, and I started at the other end. And then we met up, and when we came out, that's when, I guess, the boat got in the water at that point, and then I could hear on someone's radio saying that they're on the phone with somebody in the apartments that we were just at.
So we had communication on the phone with somebody that was still in mom, and we're believing at this point it's
Yeah.
mom and kid.
Yeah, and then at that point, you could see on 214 and 12 that the water line has come down. Like you could see the water line, and then
So you
and then
saw
above,
the bottom
you
of
could
the
see it
balcony.
coming down,
you
and I
could see
remember
the
looking
header.
at him and saying, "Hey, the water's coming down."
So then
And it was
so,
significant. It was probably 6, 8 inches of water, like of drop.
so what? So water's coming down.
45 minutes.
We
Right,
believe
yeah.
somebody to be in apartment T, whatever. T.
Yes, and we've been probably on scene for 40-some minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what'd you do?
So you hear that on the radio. So we're like, well, let's swim back across the pond to the other side of to whichever numbers those were, and it was pretty much like that, but we were further down.
Okay.
We were down by like the
So in the
The
distance,
second
do you see that
flashlight.
light way off in the distance?
Yes.
That's where the woman and child came out of, and then about in the middle of that is where the other 4 came out later on.
Okay. So let's talk woman and child quickly.
So they're saying they're talking to him. I think Captain Kenna's talking through with ECC. My radio doesn't even work, so we're just.
It had been submerged or
Yes,
battery
my-
or
the flashlight
both or-
works. That was all that was working.
Okay.
I couldn't hear anything else. So we go over there. It was myself and Galt was there. I guess they handed him down a hand tool, and basically we are just kind of told everyone to be quiet. In other words, but everyone quiet. We turned off the motor to the boat, and like you
We're
could
firemen.
hear-
We
right,
get it.
Right. You could hear them on the other side of the wall, screaming.
Really?
Like
okay.
literally closer.
But it
to me
wasn't
here.
until everything was shut down.
Everything was shut down, and everyone was like, just shut up, right? So they handed down a hand tool. Nick busted the glass of either the sliding glass door or the window. I don't even know what it was. I reached my hand in, I put it up to the ceiling, which might have been a bulkhead for the HVAC, and the water line was halfway through my palm, so 3-4 inches of water, or of air. I put my hand flat. I reached back out, and this woman grabs my hand. If I had to go, I would have gone. Probably.
Under and
No,
into the
no,
apartment.
I probably would have relieved myself from
From her grasp.
From her grasp, yeah.
Okay.
So then we play, arm wrestle back and forth, because I'm sure.
And it was her.
She's probably thinking, yes, I didn't know that at the moment, but it was a human hand grabbing my hand.
Okay.
So we're wrestling each other. I'm sure she's thinking the same thing I am, or did what I wanted to do. So I'm yelling at her like, "Hey, I'm going to pull you under and pull you out." 'Cause we had to get her under.
And you were
the bulkhead.
attempting to tell her this.
I'm screaming this through a cinder block wall
Okay.
at her. So pull her down, come up, and the first thing to come up is her 4-month-old kid out of the water first. So it's like a reverse baptism. This kid comes up, just grab with one hand it to whoever was in the boat. They hand it up to the balcony to 23. She comes out, just turn around, throw her hands up to the balcony. I mean, that's how close it was. Like, you barely had to reach.
Were you floating or were you standing on
We were
ground?
floating.
Okay.
So floating, just turned around, threw her hands up. They reached down and just hoisted her over the balcony. So, and then at that point, I think Montgomery was like, hey, we're on the phone with apartment T, whatever.
More apartments.
Yeah, more apartments. So we just started moving down.
Okay. And so what did you do with the patients?
So first handed
Once-
the kid off to my medic, and then mom came out. He got more information that a 19-year-old was still in the apartment. So I'm talking with the boat crew. Hey, do you guys see anyone else in there? They're not hearing anything. That's when I hear Montgomery.
You still haven't put people into the apartment, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's when Montgomery said they came out of apartment T3, which is right below me, and I'm in 103. Montgomery says they're on the phone with people in T2. So the conversation was, hey, we're not seeing signs of life here. We're going to go to where they are. So the boat moves down, and I think 25 goes into 102. They hear them beating on the floor. They said they're going to move furniture and try to go through the floor.
Did you hear them beating on the floor?
I did not hear them beating on the floor. Before they got the furniture moved, the boat and these guys were over there and able to get those people out. 3 people came out.
So, TJ, you stayed in the water and just moved over
We just
one.
moved down to the next apartment.
Okay. And we're the same type. So 23 was on 103 and 25 was in 102. Is that?
There was a couple people over there. I'm not sure
Okay.
who. I know 25 was bouncing back and forth.
And they said, hey, we hear people beating on the floor.
Yep.
Who's in the water with you, TJ?
I know it's him, Galt, myself, I guess.
So Justin, you went
volunteer.
back into the water?
No.
Oh,
No.
Jared.
Jerry.
Okay.
Uh,
You were in a boat though, right?
No, just Chris Costero was kind of operating the boat for me.
Right.
He was in the boat. All of our other people were in the water.
Okay.
So yeah, Costura, Gold, and then I guess the volunteer.
Right. Patrick.
So there are various
And-
people in the water.
Yes.
And Heflin cannonballed in there at some point.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you came from the balcony.
There's so many places.
I did come from the balcony.
So many places we
story.
could go with that.
Yes.
So we move over an apartment and
Yeah.
tell me kind of what happens.
I don't know who. I don't know if it was Jerry or somebody broke that glass, which
Is it look something like? Is this an accurate picture of what?
that's
Yeah.
Captain
that's-
Kenna, you're standing on a balcony. Are you looking down into this?
Yep.
Huh. Okay.
So
Yeah. Wow.
That's probably my bald head right there.
right.
Yeah.
So we move over an apartment, and I don't care. Captain, you want to tell me kind of what
So
happened?
yeah, I mean, I can actually backtrack a little bit because
Okay.
As we started on the Bravo side. So they're talking about all this stuff. I still don't have this picture, right? We started on the Bravo side. They went in. I said, hey, can you go check out? Give me a Charlie side. Give me something more. I still have no idea how big this is because I'm looking at the Bravo side of the building in the corner, and I know the water is deep. I can see that it drops off. I saw him go in. They got him tied off. Not a big deal. They can manage what they're managing. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go into the apartment, into the building, and I'm going to see if I can go in from the, open the door from the downstairs. So I go in and I go get to the top of the stairs, and it's water all the way up to the. You can't see the doors
From the interior
From the
stairwell.
interior stairwell, you cannot see the doors to the apartment there. So I was like, okay, well, this was a big swing and a miss. Up to the next, up to 8, and do the same thing, and I'm like, okay, I can't get in this one either. Can't even see the tops of the doors. Or if you can, it's literally up to the ceiling, and you can see the top ledge of it. So I came back.
So that water came in through the apartment and through
Yes.
the apartment door to fill a stairwell.
Yes. Both in 8 and 10.
Wow.
So, and I actually had Taylor Cook was with me. Fox still had him tied off. So we went to.
There's a picture.
Yeah, well, and I don't know which one that is.
That
but
doesn't
obviously-
even do it justice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it's receded
Yeah.
a little bit. So
So we went. I got Taylor. He grabbed stuff, and we went and forced a door. It ended up being, I think, maybe where you guys ended up on that balcony. It was a vacant apartment, or maybe we were in a different building, in the other building. But So force the door, go in, get out to the balcony, and then really get the picture of, whoa.
What we saw on the backside.
This is, I still didn't have that expectation that it was that big and it was that magnitude as far as all the way across to the other buildings, had them half to 3/4 of the way up and then.
And we're a good 40 minutes in, right?
Well, no, so this is about 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay.
And when I meet up with him out back, and that's when I, with them at the time, and I'm like, hey, can you see windows, doors? Nope, I can't see anything. So I'm like, all right, this is going to be a pretty good body count probably, unfortunately, at the end of this, if all this is underwater and we can't get to anything.
Yeah.
And then all of this transitions, those guys coming in with the boats, and
Do we know how long it was before when we took the lady from the apartment? What kind of time frame would you guess?
It's
20
a lot
minutes?
longer. No, it's longer. It's probably 30 or 45 minutes
So she was in her apartment
with a kid.
for 40 minutes.
on the ceiling.
Somehow up at the ceiling, maintaining.
Standing on something or swimming, because
Right.
you couldn't touch the floor. It was that deep.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I'll kind of pick up so at some point, I ended up in the water because they said they needed assistance.
You cannonballed it,
I watched,
remember?
Well, I did. It was a little more graceful than that. I did say it's really cold, out loud, pretty loud probably, but because I wasn't expecting that. But so I ended up over with the guys with the boat. I watched them take the kid and the mother up and out from down the other balcony. At the same time, we had people. It was either starting to come out the window, and I don't remember who was there. Like I said, there was boats and people, and these guys all looked the same with the same bright yellow stuff on and helmets and,
Yeah.
and whatever. So 3 females came out of what I believe was a window.
And this was the apartment next door?
This is the one next door, and we're trying to get them into life jackets, into the boat, all these things, and there's not a lot of English. Matter of fact, the last lady was a little bit difficult. We were trying to tell her to A, calm down, B, put the thing on, and then C, to tell the guy that was still inside to sit tight. We were going to come get him in a minute or whatever it was.
How hard is it to get a life jacket onto a floating person? Is it hard?
So it wasn't,
I don't know. I've never done
it.
it.
Wasn't as bad. I was holding on to, at some point, the side of the boat to the rope on the side with the lady in my hand. Matter of fact, they might have put the vest. She might have already had the vest on by the time she got to me.
Yeah, I think she had it.
But if they're willing, participant and they will calm down, then. But in their case, and you've had your face to the ceiling for who knows how long, thinking that you're about to die.
Yeah.
So they all came out and one went into the boat. One, I don't know who took her out where, and then another one, I think TJ had made across at that point, swam her out. So those 3 came out, and then we had to try to coax the guy. He was apparently standing on the kitchen counter. Typically, the kitchen is obviously a little bit further into the apartment. So I can't see him. I've got my face to the, there's only about this much room, and I can't see him. So I kind of put my face down to look and realized that my mouth went into that nasty water, which thought about later, but I didn't think about it at the time. And whoever was behind me had a better angle, and like, oh, he's there. I can see him standing on the counter, and it might have been the guy from the river. Does he speak Spanish? The volunteer? Or there was somebody else that spoke Spanish with you? Anyway, somebody told him, I think, finally to come this way. He made his way over to the door where he came out. They had to go under, came out, and then we sent him up to the balcony. Whoever was there, I think he was over there at that point. Were you guys up top on that one?
That was probably 25
So
or
25, and I
3.
think my guys were up on top. The other 2 of my guys
Lifting
were up
him
top.
out of the water.
He came up and out. The 3 ladies went, whether it was via boat or got swam or / walked out.
Is it difficult to take somebody from the water into that small boat?
It is, especially when they're wet and there's not much to hold on to. If they don't have the ability to help kick, it's difficult, right? We practice pulling each other in the boat with a
But
life
y'all-
jacket
you guys
on.
are
It's great.
swimming
You grab a
guys,
life
though.
jacket, yank them in there, right?
Right?
You throw a cheesy orange collar life jacket on them and still try to lift them. It's difficult. It's not that easy.
Okay.
There's not a lot of room
So
in
not,
that little boat.
maybe
either.
not plan A. Plan A might be if we can swim them, let's do
Right.
that.
It was just a long swim from where we were to get to that part.
So do we think, is the water going down now?
The water definitely receded because we could see it had dropped since they had gotten there. It dropped enough to be able to see the tops of the doors and windows.
Okay.
So it had definitely receded.
Okay, Chief, I think.
Yeah, so we had a question come in. You figured out when you want to answer it. So somebody asked, what are your thoughts now, or did you have a plan then if the water was rising instead of, being status quo or falling, right? So if you want,
So
if
I
you want
think
to address
maybe
it now,
at
you want
the
to hold
end,
on.
we'll
Yep.
try to address
Just
that.
keep that in your mind there.
And if that changes things from a swift water
Sure.
perspective. So we pull how many more people out of the apartment next door?
4 total.
4. So we have 7 total?
2 and 4.
Well,
Plus
one more-
Justin.
yeah,
Yes,
one-
7.
Justin.
7.
Oh,
we
yeah,
have
yes,
seven.
yes,
So
yes,
we
sorry.
pulled 7
that was
total.
Dad. That was Dad to Mom and the child. Yes, sorry, 7.
So, there only ended up being one person succumbed to?
Correct.
Okay. So, we're going to kind of transition a little bit to a swift water perspective. So, you were the rostered, if you will, swift water officer of the day, correct?
Correct.
So tell me some of the things that involves when you hear this going on. Hey, you're already down in Rockville, so you don't have a lot of lead time to this, correct?
Correct. That's right.
So were you on Congressional?
We were on Tilden, and
Oh, so you were just down Montrose
yeah,
Drive?
like 2 turns and we were there. So
Okay.
it was pretty close.
Okay.
And-
And are there MDCs in the
Yes.
support vehicles?
Yes.
So you're seeing all of these updates. You're listening to the radio traffic.
Well, funny, because we were actually going to a car in the water call there, just off of Tilden, off of Montrose there, and obviously going to the call, I'm coordinating with the other boat as to where we're going to go to walk out and get this guy off of his car. Right, the guy's standing on the car, the water's coming up, whatever, it's going to.
So the other boat, meaning there are 2 units from Company Town.
Correct. So typically they'll dispatch 2 units at least initially, and then when it gets real busy, they'll kind of start splitting us up. But we were still together going to that
What's
call.
the intent of that?
So the idea is if I have 2 trucks, 2 crews, 2 boats, I can approach a water incident from either side of the incident.
Okay.
Right. So we're going up there. We're like looking at the map, like, all right, we're going to turn left on there here, and we should be on this side of the car. You go around the block and come here, and you'll be on that side of the car. So we were kind of doing that kind of thing going to this call, and it just so happened we were both
You
on
guys
the
talk
same.
between each other.
Just on the so.
So if there's an ops channel, you're telling.
So sometimes it's on the ops channel, but on the water we've been using the Zellos a lot, which still is going to go over the ops channel, but we've been using the Zellos more
So
often.
you're
They
talking
work
to
well.
the other support vehicle.
Right.
Hey, we're coming in off Twinbrook. I want you to
Correct.
go up Ears Mill or whatever the case is. Okay.
So it just so happened Battalion 3 was there first on that call. He ran the call, got there before us, said, yeah, I'm here with him, blah, blah, blah. And then as we're pulling up or kind of coordinating, I kind of hear like the whole, hey, we need the swift water response at this apartment. I'm like, did you hear that? Like, and at the same time, the water was falling at that car, and Battalion 3 was like, look, the water is falling quickly. You guys go, don't even just turn around and go to Twinbrook. When the water comes down, I'll go talk to this guy. Like it was falling that quickly. So we didn't even engage in that call. We literally turned around and pulled out in two turns. So of course, as soon as I clear that call and I get, like I'm already halfway there before I get the first MDC message popping up on my MDC, and I'm reading, I'm like, wait, baby floating, the water's coming in the basement, and I'm thinking, all right, well, there's probably water actually flowing through the basement, and there's people stuck. We're gonna have to walk in there, and I mean, this is what I'm picturing, right? I'm trying to picture swift water call in a basement of an apartment, right? And that's what I'm thinking. Like, all right, it's water's coming in the windows on one side, going out the slider on the other. You know,
Should
we're gonna be, pulling in, fighting some moving water, grab these people and get out.
Organizationally, should we be calling it something different? I mean,
No,
if I called it something other than a swift water response, would that have painted a different picture?
No, I mean, it was water rescue in a basement. I mean, no
Okay.
matter how you say it, I mean, it's certainly not what we would expect, right? Normally, I'm expecting the car in the water or, something of that sort, not necessarily in the
we're
basement.
listening to them go back and forth. And what are you thinking as a swift water officer? That the actions that they're doing and,
So we were so close that I think that the actions they were doing were literally while we were walking, and I think I believe that I in the quarter mile saw his person being handed up to the balcony as we were walking up to the other building, and
then you got to run back and get the boat. I mean, do you go up and do an assessment and then?
So I told the second truck. Once we walked up there was a little bit of space. I told the second boat that was coming in, I said, drive all the way up here because we're going to put your boat in the water. So I didn't need to go back and get mine. I just had them. They were coming right behind us. Had them drive up closer.
Pause you for 1 second. Chief, did you have a question?
I did, but I didn't. But I'll go back to it. So just real quick, the reason we brought Master Firefighter Smith was he was listed as a Swiftwater officer that day, right? So when we think about our rostering of Swiftwater, right, we have boat operators and crew members, and you were the officer, right? So some people may be looking like, what was your role? So if you just explain a bit about rostering and what that means when you're rostered as the Swiftwater officer.
So typically, right, stations 10 and 30 will every day have at minimum two crew people and 2 operators for the boats at each station. So four people between 10 and 30 that are crew are Swiftwater qualified, and now 14 has 2 of those people, a boat operator and a crew. And then usually, and not all the time, but usually there will be at least one Swiftwater officer working between those 3 stations.
And is the officer kind of in charge of that group?
Somewhat. So obviously, as units get split up, that whoever the boat operator is with that crew is kind of like the senior or the unit officer there, and then the Swiftwater officer is kind of, when we run our standard calls where we're all together, is kind of the one that's doing most of the communicating and the organizing of where units are going and what's happening. So, typically if you're all running a call together on the river, then you have one Swiftwater officer kind of coordinating, whereas, when we get into the flooding environment, we start getting split up and it's a little bit harder to do that. But either way, I was...
So what was your... Thank you. So is that... Yep. So what was your... I don't know if it's perception of what crews were doing from your stance, from a Swiftwater guy stance.
So initially, when I was walking up, I went to the dispatch building, and there really wasn't many people there. And I could see a couple people on the balcony of the building across, the one that ended up being the one that was flooded. And, there was a lot of people just kind of standing around like citizens, standing around everywhere. And I thought that there was just a group of citizens on the balcony. And frankly, that building, because the terrace level was completely underwater, it didn't even look like that building had a terrace level. And we were dispatched to the terrace level of the other building, which clearly was 4 feet underwater. And okay, this looks like the place we need to be.
We're going to walk in and get some people and walk
right.
out.
We're going to walk in. Looks like the water has pretty much stopped moving. It's not swift anymore. It's just kind of filled up, gone stagnant. We're going to go and, check these bottom apartments and make sure there's nobody in here. And so literally we made it into the first apartment. I'm like, yeah, it looks like the water's starting to fall a little bit. You can see maybe 2 inches of water line. Said, hey, the water looks like it's falling. It's not moving. I think things are slowing down. We're good. And then these guys are over there saying, hey, we need some help over here. I'm like, all right, what do you need? I can see you're on the balcony. I got the boat coming into you. They're like, well, no, there's people underneath in these apartments. I'm like, well, what apartments? They're like, well, the apartment's under here. And I'm like, well, there's apartments there? Because
and there were guys bobbing in the water. Like,
yeah,
TJ was in the water. The captain was in the water.
Correct.
Okay.
And so, we start walking over there, and, well, little do you know,
swim.
as we walk over, the water gets deeper and deeper and deeper, and suddenly I'm swimming, and I'm like, man, we get there, and, they're saying, hey, apparently there's people under here, and my first thought is, well, if there's people under here, it's bad news. Like, there's no, right, I'm like, there's no way that they're alive in here because it is completely over. The balcony, the first floor balcony, the water is almost to the balcony.
So when you had heard that we had removed people, did that change that thought at all? Like,
so apparently somebody had been passed out of the water, and I'm like, okay, and they're saying, well, they're telling us there's people in this apartment, that apartment. There was a little confusion about like which apartment we were talking about, but again, I was like, I don't know, and so it might have been Captain Heflin or whoever was there was like, hey, apparently they're on the phone with these people, talking to them, and I'm like, how can this be? And we're trying to reach in through like finding the windows, and I'm reaching in, and I'm feeling drywall. The ceiling drywall, like right under the water, like there is very little airspace. As it would turn out later, the drywall ceiling next to the doors and windows on the back of the terrace there was actually kind of a bulkhead for some ductwork or something, and we figured out that if we reached in there further, there was actually 18 inches or so of air in there, and then we started thinking, oh, well, maybe they are in here, and maybe we can get.
Is there any kind of plan to, I don't know, swim under a door frame
So
to a survivable? I mean, is that
right?
Is that a scenario you guys talk about?
So that's kind of in the surface water rescue world. That's a no-no, right? We don't go underwater. That's not something that we do. And there was even one point where there was a bunch of us in there. I can't remember who all was there, but we were there and we were kind of tethering people. And, a couple of the guys were like, well, and, I would never say, hey, you got to swim under there, because, I mean, that's kind of a way outside of the box. And a couple of guys were like, man, I think we can get under there. Look, it's just a bulkhead. There's a big air gap. And we kind of had that brief moment of, all right, I mean, if we need to do this, is everybody good with this? And they're like, okay,
Did anybody
be
do that?
tethered. Yeah, so as it turns out, the old fella who was not speaking good English, and he was kind of in there on the kitchen counter, and that's at the point where we had just gotten enough to where you could almost shine just through the crack of the door, like you had this much space under the door, and Galt actually had to go in and help him out. So it was one of those things like, all right, he's like, I can do it. I was like, you good? We're going to tether you. I don't want to lose you in there. And so held his breath when there and kind of helped him out. But I mean, yeah, there was a point where, and even as the water dropped, I mean, you still kind of had to hold your breath to go in there and do like the primary searches that we were doing in the apartments. But it was
How did we? And you said something to me earlier when we were talking about this, about breaching glass.
Yeah.
Can you kind of? And I thought it was it's something I would have never thought about.
Sure.
But breaching glass underwater, and it's the difficulty that poses.
Sure. So it's often that, we might break out a car window, for a car in the water, and a lot of times that glass where we're breaching it is just out of the water a little bit. Well, when the sliders and the windows were completely submerged underwater, and you're thinking, well, I'm just going to break through this slider so I can get in here and check. Well, how do you break that? I mean, you're not swinging a hammer or Halligan bar underwater. Even if you have a window punch, if it's a spring-loaded, it's not gonna work under the water.
Generate force.
Yeah. So I mean, that was kind of a small problem in itself. Trying to go in from the door side where you were trying to force a door that's underwater. I mean,
And a slider at that.
it was
Difficult
very
to force to
very
begin with.
different. Yeah, it was very different. So I mean, I think the way that it ended up working was basically kind of kicking, and not even a fast kick because you're underwater. I mean, more so putting enough pressure on the glass to finally get it to break was kind of the way it happened.
So
did you say that Galt got it with some sort of tool?
Hydroram. He got a hydroram on the apartment door, from the other side when we were searching.
do we?
To get in the glass, he used something, I think, to break the glass in the back.
On the first one.
The first one.
On the T3 apartment, I think we handed down a sledgehammer.
Okay.
Needless to say, difficult task.
Well,
Something
right,
that
try to
we need
try
to.
to
If
swing
we
that
have to
hole.
accomplish this, it's something that we have to think about, generating the force to be able.
Wasn't every day.
Yeah. So you saw what was going on. Did you change anything as a Swiftwater officer?
So
Like, hey guys, we really can't be doing this. We're going to do this instead.
So the first thing to think of is that particular scenario isn't, there isn't a normal, we've never gotten to, most of our water rescues, you kind of have a general procedure, like a general order of things, you do things. That particular call, there really isn't an order established. We don't teach people how to go into a completely submerged apartment. I mean,
Do you
right?
talk about it?
So we do now. We do now.
So does boss talk. But you didn't change anything that was currently in place, whether it was, Captain Kenna's, Captain Heflin's, whoever's plan. Hey, that plan is working. We're just going to
Correct.
go with this plan and continue
Correct.
with this plan.
So the plan was working fine. Obviously, I just was concerned warning people like of some of the other things that we had to think about in the floodwater that
Such
I don't know that
as?
anybody else would be thinking about. So that apartment complex was like a big old bowl. There has to be a drainage pipe somewhere to for that water to flow through there when it rains. Okay, there's a big, Veers Mill Road was at a much higher elevation than we were, and that water has to go somewhere. Okay, if there's a culvert pipe there, We don't want to be anywhere near it. And
Somebody's
I know
gonna get
there's one
sucked
there
in.
somewhere, right? So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, looking for that, trying to think of where that might be. What about electricity? You know, every one of those apartments, you're ducking in there and your head is this close to the ceiling and all the lights are still on.
Oh, the
So-
lights were on in the apartment.
Oh yeah, lights were on.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So, okay, now you're thinking electricity. Now we fast forward to daylight and the water's fallen 4 feet now. And the big green transformer box in the middle of that lake sticking up out of the water that I definitely, when I was swimming, kicked over top of it thinking it was an AC unit or something.
Is there a
It's
way
not
to
a
sort
simple-
through that though, as it's happening? Like,
No. I mean,
look, I got some low areas in Station 2's area, right? How do I figure out that there's a transformer? What do I even do about a transformer? I don't know.
I don't have an answer. for
Get
that.
lucky
I don't
like
know.
we did.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately they are somewhat insulated, so you have a little bit of help there. But there has definitely been times where we've had some communications with like electrical engineers, like, hey, what would be, you know, a good if we know there's electricity or we know there's so many factors in the water, the consistency of the water, what's, you know, what minerals are in the water, how much salt is in the water, how clean, how not clean is it, all makes it so different that, I mean, there's
Did
no
we,
way to even guess.
Are we worried about contaminants in the water as well? I mean,
Correct.
You know,
So, I mean, for the water guys, right, it's our policy that if it's a flood situation, right, we're going to wear a dry suit to keep the contaminants off. Because
Captain Heflin had it in his mouth.
The water did touch my mouth.
so
That's gross.
It was. Thinking back.
depending on the kind of area you're in, right, you might have, you know, obviously any, you know, fluids from vehicles, you could have sewage, you could have, you know, all that kind of stuff in the water. So it's,
Okay.
it's something to consider. And in that water specifically, I mean, the best I can describe it, when I got in and swam it, I was swimming in oatmeal. It was that thick and full of debris.
And you guys feel the same way while you were swimming in it?
So I didn't think about anything in the water until later on when we were checking apartments, when it kind of came up in the conversation.
Doo-doo.
Well, I mean, you know, if you can picture an apartment with anything in it that will
Yeah.
floating.
Yeah.
Mattresses, trash cans, baby diapers. I mean, I did see a baby diaper, refrigerators, all these things floating. And then when we went to check some apartments after all the people were done and whatever, we went to check some apartments as kind of a secondary. We were walking through and TJ noticed a spider and he screamed a little bit, floating on something. And then he mentioned snakes, and that's when I was like, "Oh, I shouldn't have been in this water."
Yeah, I'm out. I'm leaving.
Thankfully, it was at the end. Was when it started crossing my mind.
He'd been in the wagon the whole
But
time.
at that point, I might have never got out.
I'm glad I haven't seen a snake.
Right? Yeah. When he said that, I was like, "Oh." So, but I mean, at the time, I didn't think of it. Like I said, I mean, you can see the mulch in that one picture. I mean, a lot of that is mulch and wood and whatever
Yeah.
floating. But there was other stuff, you know, that was
Yeah.
floating around as well.
So, and I do have one kind of parting. We're going to start to wind down a little bit. Is there anything that you want to add that, you know, beneficial to any parts of the story?
For me, I mean, there's a couple things.
And we're going to end with what would you do different?
What would I do different?
And I don't
Okay,
want that now.
No,
Just
okay.
add.
So, no, I mean, just, you know, I guess you always hear the phrase kind of expect the unexpected. I did not expect to see what I saw when I got there, even with reading comments and apartments flooding and people floating and all of those comments along the way, or CAD updates. I didn't expect when I walked out onto the balcony to see what I saw. I expected it to be kind of confined to that one corner, not the whole back of, you know, two apartment buildings. You know, there was, I don't know. 100
Have you
feet.
ever run anything remotely like this?
No, not as far as that magnitude. No.
Captain Kenna, I'm going to ask you the same thing.
So I think a lot of things lined up for a lot of good things to happen here. The captain and I, a lot of experience together. None of us prepared for this, but I think we took past experiences and put them together to make plans work. A lot of good communication between the boat crews, other crews there.
It sounds even like with ECC. I mean, for them to be on the phone with somebody and be able to convey that, it's
Absolutely.
excellent work.
Absolutely. And then when things drop, like, hey, my radio's not working. Cool, I got your communication, no problem. It just went really smooth, everyone working together. And a little bit of luck also with the transformer and some other things. So.
Yeah. TJ, you would add anything?
No. I mean, no.
No?
No.
Years of lifeguarding you want to add?
Yeah, no. Throw the whistle.
I'm interested in what kind of lifeguard. Or ocean lifeguard or
Pool.
Pool. Gotcha. Interesting.
Justin, you?
No, sir.
Jerry?
No.
All right, now the tail question, and I think a ton of incredible things happened here by a ton of people, not just the 5 of you. If you could change one or a couple of things, what would you do?
So,
Or enhance me watching at Company 2, watching this?
So the first thing I would say is that if I could change something, I would have had some shoes with me. I had on my turnout pants, and when I got to the edge of the water, the light bulb went on that these weren't going to do me so well. When I was initially going to go in, I got in a little while later. But so I actually ran over to Rob King, Chief 705 Delta, I think it is. Ran over to his car and said, "Hey, what size shoes you wear?" He said 12. I said, "Can I borrow?" So I threw my pants off, threw on his zip-up pro boots, and that's what I ended up, swimming in for whatever the period of time was later on. So I've never thought about bringing my shoes with me, or bringing shoes with me, or having shoes, like a
Available.
cold weather bag, like somebody talked about earlier. It's never crossed my mind to make sure I have some shoes with me. But in this case, they would have done me significantly better than the other options. That's probably one thing I would change. And then the other thing is maybe being putting a little bit of the plan in motion a little bit earlier. But it was probably 15 minutes until I really realized what was going on after we were there, just because I couldn't see everything. And there was a lot of people yelling, and I passed the guy crying in the hallway because his wife's supposedly below. There was just a lot of stuff, so I missed a handful of minutes or 10 minutes early on that as I was checking apartments or whatever else, I didn't get a picture of what we were actually faced with. And I've never thought about having to bring somebody, to go underwater to get somebody from their apartment to the outside. So I maybe would have stepped back for a minute and tried to think a little bit more rather than, or try to plan a little bit more. How's that?
Do you think, as a follow-up to that question, do you think that the command team or officer or whomever was there, did they help clear up some of that? I mean, was that good, effective communication between the unit officers or the firefighters doing the tasks and command?
So I think that was first. So the first thing was he showed up command showed up pretty quickly. So that took it away from me. So I didn't, because I was trying to get my head wrapped around everything. So I think that was a positive, right? At that point, I'm done with it, and I can say, I can try to do.
Become a doer.
Right, become a doer versus sitting in the car. So I think that was beneficial. That kind of took it off my shoulders that I could get to doing stuff or trying to do stuff and get a picture of what was going on. But then after that, there was a lot going on. I missed a lot of radio traffic, and then once I was in the water, my radio was done not long after that.
Did you take the radio in the water with you?
Well, I had a radio strap. I mean,
Okay.
So I killed 2 radios that night. I think it might have been just the mics, but I don't. They
Yeah,
say they work.
They do fine in the water.
They say
The
they-
mic that you don't want to get wet.
Right,
Just because you can't hear or talk in the mic, but the radio will.
Yeah, so I didn't hear anything because they were both
Okay.
underwater.
Yeah, yeah.
When I gracefully got into the water, it probably went underwater, and then. So.
It's a good thing you don't have an ambulance here.
Right. So yeah, I got off track.
Okay.
Where were we?
What you would change in the
Yeah, so I think that was those little things. Maybe formulate a better plan. Command got there, and tried to take some of that stuff and trying to figure it out. But I think there was a lot more, probably yelling across or talking than probably radio-wise, because there was a lot of face-to-face pointing. Then we got some communication about this apartment, that apartment.
Most of what happened was us floating in the water and discussing
talking
the
to
plan
people
over
on the
there.
balcony?
Yeah, balcony, and talking to people on balconies and them handing stuff down, handing back up, and so yeah, a lot more face-to-face stuff for all of us rather than via radio.
Captain Kenna, you can do something different.
So first I'll go back and address that question if the water was rising. So I had a bunch of plans, and I did not plan for that. I would have just went by the seat of my pants, kind of like we did the whole call. I had some ideas, but willing to put in the plans wherever it fit. Changing what I would do differently, I probably would do a little more radio communication so everyone knew what was going on. As radios went down and command was established, I think command did a great job. I felt that I had a sub-command of that building, and it seemed like that's how it was for the other 3 buildings also. I don't know. I think everyone made good decisions. I would definitely think about trying to go through the floor a little bit sooner, maybe. Maybe beat on the floor. That never crossed my mind until after people were on the phone.
Taking something and hitting on the floor and see if you get a response back.
Yes. Yep. So definitely learned that. Yeah, I don't think there's...
TJ, you?
Probably don't write people off, number one.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
The time frame between you were there and when we pulled the second group out, right?
The will to live is strong, apparently.
Yeah.
And the only other thing would be probably, and I
Did
thought
you
about this.
do you feel that you wrote them off at any point?
Yeah, I know I did.
Okay.
I did too.
Okay.
My first swam around back there, I was like, there's no way. And you couldn't see
Did it
anything
change
with
your effort?
I started focusing towards the other buildings where there's at least 3/4 full. I mean, there were some times where we were just sitting there, just treading water, like trying to think of what next for minutes. Like just the 6 or 8 of us, how many there was of us, just sitting there like, any ideas? Everyone's
So
thinking.
yours really is give people the benefit. Hey,
Yeah.
we're going to keep trying until
Yeah.
we're proven otherwise.
Right.
Okay.
And then the only other thing is, I probably should have, and this I didn't think about this till days after, when I first got in, knowing that there's a baby, but just thinking that there's a baby. But if I turned that corner and there was multiple other people, I mean, I probably should have brought another PFD or something.
Did you take any PFDs with you?
Just the one I was wearing.
Okay.
So just something in retrospect to think
Certainly.
of. Like
Certainly.
I could have turned there, could have been 10 people. That would have been a pretty hard choice.
Yeah. Justin, you? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple things that I would change about my initial actions, and I think it's important to stress, especially for the people who have the amount or lack thereof time on the job that I do. Being the fact of I'm very fortunate at 23B to have guys who have 10+ years on and know what they're doing and have been in hectic situations, but that being said, it's not uncommon when I go to other stations, whether it's on the detail trail or working overtime, to be working with somebody who's out of a class below me, on a transport unit. And I really wish that I would have had the foresight and the tact to slow down and have called for the swift water response before I entered the water, because if I was with somebody who didn't have the experience like Ryan Houck did, if I was with somebody out of this last recruit class, somebody who has less than 20 shifts on, or however many it might be, I can't expect them to do that, because I'm for one the unit officer, and I'm also the person in that situation with the most time on the job, albeit that time is very very small. So I wish I would have been able to do that. And also building off of what Captain Heflin had, is I was wearing a pair of Vans, and I wish I would have had a pair of Red Wings or a pair of boots in the unit. So it definitely, just because I was fortunate enough not to have banged up my feet, but there was definitely some, the transformer, there was a playground in there, and just having more, having steel toes versus having cloth shoes, I would have, looking back, it would have been a preventative measure that I wish I had. So it's definitely
So
try to change how I approach that in the future.
And I'm going to tell you, so you highlighted a couple of times on being the new guy. And I'm going to tell you from not the new guy, from where, you did your internship at Station 2 and all of that. And I'm surprised and pleased at the same time that with only 3 years on the job, that you did take the actions that you took. Like, it makes me really happy to see that from, your abilities to make those decisions. And you're not 10 years, you don't have 25 or 28 years on the job. But at only 3 years, you said, hey, this is a huge deal, and I'm initiating action. And that's great, I think. I think you should be very proud of yourself for that.
I appreciate that, Cap.
And Jerry, if you could do something different, tell me.
So I feel like overall, there's not a lot that I would change. I think that the way that the things played out, and you look at kind of the negative things that started off, right? We started off, going for a service call, and then this thing escalating. So everybody, I think, was kind of behind the 8 ball, right? I'm thinking, oh, well, there's some water going in the basement. We're going to, and this thing was much bigger than any of us maybe initially anticipated. And, for everybody that went, and, I think that the people that showed up there and made the good decisions, it made everything go very well, because honestly, it could have been, 8 recoveries instead of 1. So I think that there's not a lot that I could think of that I would do differently. It was a very outside of the box call, and I think that everybody adapted appropriately, with all the negative stuff.
Can you touch a little bit on this water level thing? We've kind of talked about it rising and falling.
Sure.
Why do I give a crap about that?
So in our world of water calls, the water rising or falling makes a difference of everything that we're gonna do. And it's no matter whether it's a car in the water or just somebody stuck in the middle of a fast moving water. The rise and the fall makes all the difference in the world as to the urgency, as to our plan, how we're going to operate, and that sort of thing. So,
what's a simple way to figure that out?
So obviously the easy way on the building was right that water line. So when I first got there and went into the first building, I could see on the wall maybe 2 inches of water line and knew that, at some point the water has dropped 2 inches. So I knew at least at the very beginning that it was starting to fall. It wasn't falling fast, but it was starting to fall, and it wasn't fast moving anymore, which made things a little bit easier to operate in. We weren't fighting fast moving water. If water's rising, that changes a lot of things. That means that I or whoever our people are that are going in the water now have to do things urgently with the danger increasing. But that's one of those risk versus reward things.
Is that something that you want to know as a water guy? Like,
yes.
If you're coming to Tacoma Park and I can tell you, hey, this water has gone in the 3 minutes I've been here, it's gone up X number of feet.
Yes, that makes a big difference in how quick it's rising, because that means that we need to make our decisions quicker, and we need to get to people or persons. We arrive somewhere and you see somebody. Most commonly it's somebody drove their car in the water sitting on the hood. If the water's rising, they're going to get washed away soon, and they're just going to drown. So you better do something quick. And if the water's rising, that means there's a large volume. It's moving faster, more dangerous. There's a lot more. It's going to change how we do things. One of the questions that came up was, what would you do in that situation if the water is rising? And I think that eventually we had some truck companies putting the holes in the floor, and I think that was probably our next best, step, right? If the water started to rain again, the creek nearby, if the bank started to overflow again or broke the bank of that creek and it started flooding more, that cutting through the floor was the way to go. We were fortunate that building had a wood floor.
Were we ever successful at that task?
So yes, there was some confusion about the terrace levels. The property manager said there is a 4th apartment, or it's actually a 3rd apartment. They put in a studio apartment, and 25 was able to cut a hole in the floor and look in before the boat crews were able to get in there and do a search. They were able to put the light down through the hole and not see anyone.
So what I would add to that, putting the hole in the floor thing, we noticed this. As the water dropped a little more, we were able to kind of do hasty searches of all those apartments and get into the rooms and stuff. So if you think about when the water was in there, it was above all the door frames. So imagine if a kid in their bedroom, they're standing on the bed and breathing, but the water is above even the interior doorway. So if you put a hole in the living room floor, they may not hear you or may not come to you because they can't get to you.
Yeah.
So if it was to come to something like that again, I would say you need to, take a guess, right, and be like, okay, well, I think that, if we put a hole here and there's a living room, maybe there's a bedroom over here, maybe we do a hole here, like, you know what I mean? Like one hole in the middle of the apartment may not be enough because maybe this one can't get out of this bedroom or this one can't get out of the kitchen or what have you. So, I mean, the multiple holes would have probably benefited, at the initial stages when the water was above all the door frames.
Certainly extra things to think
You
about.
had lots of little, compartments inside there.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And no more questions, Chief?
We do need to wrap up, but I think there's two worthy of quick consideration. One is somebody asked, did anybody worry, think about ground ladders, portable ground ladders from the terrace down into the water, right, to get those people out? And then a second part was did anybody know prior to cutting the holes in the floor if they were dealing with wood or concrete? In other words, was it indicated on a pre-plan or previous knowledge or whatever? So if you don't mind answering those quickly, that'd be helpful.
It's your area. It's probably you.
To be honest, 25 did the cutting in the floor. I think they sounded the floor and realized it was wood and was able to make the cut. As far as putting the ladder down, the water was right there next to the balcony, so it was just step off into the water, putting the ladder down. To enter the water would not have made a difference, I don't think. And just to add to the water going through, there was fence posts inside the building to also put how much stuff was in the water and how forceful it was. So.
All right. Well, again, thank you guys for coming and sharing your story. A lot of great things happen by really everybody, and this is what it's about. This is why we're doing this, is for you guys to sit around and tell it at the coffee table. We do have actually a boss talk and a challenge in the street coming up pretty soon. The boss talk is going to be next week. I don't have my calendar in front of me, so I'm relying on the chief. Company 25 on the 13th of October, and I believe our next challenge in the street will be early November, and it'll be some TRT stuff. So until then, thank you. Have a good day.